Hi, I'm Nigel Griffiths. I work in the Advanced Technology Centre in the UK, part of IBM Europe. In this technical hands-on movie, we're going to look at how to back up, restore and clone workload partitions. Let's log into our workload partition 23. Just make sure that we know where we are. I like to create a little file in /home. Let's put date output into test. We'll just use that to make sure that we got back to our original image. Okay, we'll log out of that now, and we're in our global copy of AIX, ls WPAR. We can see we have workload partition 23 running there, and it's active. The other two are defined, so we can ignore those. Now let's use the save WPAR command. We use -N to back up our NFS files, otherwise they're not backed up. I guess the assumption would be that you could back those up actually on the NFS server. We're actually backing those up here on our global copy of AIX. -I was going to create as an image data file that we could use on the way back in to change things. A -F to the file, and we've got a file system called backup, and we'll name the file something sensible. And then we have to tell it which workload partition we actually want to back up. So there we go. And it's finished. Now that was quick, wasn't it? If we change to backup, we can find the file in here, and we'll find that this is just over 40 megabytes in size. That's a very small file, isn't it? Amazing, a whole copy of AIX, well, a miniature copy of AIX, a workload partition, is actually there in 40 megabytes. We have to remember, of course, that this doesn't include /user and /opt, which is the vast bulk of AIX, and we don't need to back that up with this workload partition. That keeps the size nice and small. And at 40 megabytes, we can back this up very regularly and simply transport that perhaps over a network to a tape backup or something like that. Now the next thing I want to do is stop this workload partition, and I'll do it with these options to make it as quick as possible. And probably best if I type the command in right. This is defined state. Now I'm going to go to the NFS server here, and you can see these are all the mount points for all my workload partitions from WP1 to WP32. And in over here we have 23, home, root, temp and var. I've already typed in here the command that, if I get this right, will actually delete all the files in that workload partition. There shouldn't be anything left by the time this finishes. Okay, nothing in these directories now. It's important not to delete the directories because they're NFS mount points, and that upsets NFS. If we go back to here and we try and start our workload partition on a set of empty file systems, of course it's not going to like that terribly. There we go. Can't find any files to mount, so it's going to stop. So let's recover from that. Now the definition of the workload partition is actually in the backup, so first thing we have to do is actually delete the workload partition completely. Okay, so we no longer know anything about that, we're just relying on a backup, and we can, for example, have a look at what's in our backup. What is it? ls save WPAR and -F, that's in this directory, wp23. My fault, I need a minus F in there, and we can see all the files in the actual backup. And so we could extract one individual file if we deleted it by accident, but in our case we haven't got anything left at all. We've had a disaster. So now we want to do a restore WPAR minus F backup wp23.bk. So that's creating the file systems and pulling in all the data. This will take. Okay, we got it back and we can start WPAR WP23. And we can log into it. If you refused, maybe being a bit too quick there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Log in. /home. And we've even got that last file that we created. If we log out of there and come back to the global copy of AIX, we go to /temp. There's a directory called WPAR data, and then there's a directory for each of the backups we've done. We've only done one here, so we'll go to that particular directory, and we'll see there's a set of files in here. These can be useful for changing the way it actually restores our backup. For example, if we go to the WPAR spec file, we'll find this is the specification file for the workload partition we backed up, with the details there. This was actually used to regenerate the workload partition as we did the restore. You see the mount points in here at the bottom. There's some security information. There's some other things in here like the image data file that tells you how to rebuild the file systems, for example, and we can change those as we come back. The backup.data command gives a full specification of the global copy of AIX that it was running under, in case we have problems when we want to restart it because we're under a different version of AIX, so we can find out the details. Now let's think about cloning. We've already backed up a workload partition and restored it back into place, but a clone is really a backup of a workload partition and then restoring it but into a different workload partition. Well, let's have a little look at that. If we change to here, I've got a little command to move a copy, the backup of 23, but install it back into workload partition 24. So we have a little command here. So we've got restore, but we've got an extra bunch of commands in here. So we're going to say restore this file, WP23 backup file, but we want to change the host name to be this. We want the node name to be this. We want the mount point directory to be different, and we want the network settings to be different, so it's got a different IP address here and it's got different mount points in NFS over here. So in this case we're doing a restore, but we're changing a whole bunch of parameters. Now one thing to do note is that we have a -m option here, and there's a double quotes here, and there's another one here. So all of this in here is actually a comment that has other -n options inside it. It took me a couple of times to get that absolutely correct. But if we run that command, we'll see it looks much the same as the restore that we did for 23, but now it's going into a workload partition called 24. Okay, there we go. And we can start it up. Okay, you'll see login to get to it. We can see it's a direct backup of our original workload partition 23. Well, there we have it. backup, restore and cloning of our workload partitions. Now, of course, this was a small default install. If you have data in your workload partition, then of course your backup and recovery will take a bit longer. Of course, if you have your applications actually installed in your global copy of AIX, then of course you again will benefit from the small and compact nature of the backups of workload partitions.